What's going on, guys? Episode 21. We are here today with Goltra, Colin Goltra. He is a digital art collector, very well known within the art collecting community for an extremely impressive collection. He was recommended to me from Lane from episode 14, and it absolutely lived up to expectations with the podcast. We meshed together super well, and I found him to be extremely likable, intelligent, and knowledgeable on like a whole host of different subjects. We get into the impact that crypto has had on the Philippines, the different work situations that are available in the crypto space that are available for these people, and just the overall impact. And then NBA Top Shot, other collectibles, his philosophy in terms of collecting. We also discussed Pack, which I think we had a good enough discussion that even Pack would appreciate. So that was awesome. And a whole host of other topics. If we missed anything that you guys want to see in the future, please comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Always appreciate it. Hopefully, you guys are staying safe and healthy. So, have a good one. Thank you for tuning in. Always appreciate it. Peace.
I guess we'll kind of pivot into more of our strengths or more your strength. You're very renowned within
Yeah,
the collector side of the NFT space. Like, what got you started?
yeah,
What was like, the first eye catching piece that you had to have? And yeah.
yeah. Thank you for asking that. Actually, I think it was one of my. I did a spotlight with Super Rare
Mm-hmm,
earlier this week, as we talked about kind of before we went live, and I had something where I was kind of explaining. Uh, I was explaining very high level concepts of what I liked about crypto art,
mm-hmm,
but I actually meant to like go into a specific moment where I, uh, I collected my first piece, and that was or no, I wanted to collect my first piece.
mm-hmm,
So it was a piece called Obscurus by Totemical.
mm-hmm.
And I saw it on Twitter, and it's just this very like, it's a bunch of figures. I have this thing for like 3D figures, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the jokes that they would make about it in crypto art circles are like bald humans, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was this thing of it's this beautiful piece with a bunch of just figures, and they were just in this exalted thing, and the lighting is beautiful. And I saw it on Twitter, and I was like, dude, I have to have that. I just, I was just taken by the piece, and I stopped kind of in my doom scrolling, and I just sort of said, wow, I gotta have this. I gotta, I
Mm-hmm.
knew about super rare generally. I've got buddies who are into NFTs, but I hadn't really actively collected. And so from that, I created a super rare account. Funded the wallet and stuff. Bid on the piece. I didn't know how to communicate with the artists, and I lost it. Someone else outbid me. So I was captivated. It's absolutely for me the one that got away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's called Obscurus. It's by
Yeah.
Totemical, and Motoko Vault got it from me,
Mm-hmm.
and so took it. Not from me, like from Totemical. And
Mm-hmm.
since then, I've figured out the artist communication side.
Yeah.
Gotten a chance to get to know Justin a little bit better, the art, Justin Totemical,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, uh, I kind of know what I'm doing now. But yeah, for me, there's definitely this one that got away moment. But I got them, so that kind of got me to click the link,
Mm-hmm.
create an account and everything, and then from there, I just started looking around the
Mm-hmm.
marketplace, and I just kept falling in love essentially, and yeah, I guess, and then from there, I started to build a collection.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, they were wondering who the hell I was. And yeah, eventually, just tried to collect interesting pieces that all
Mm-hmm.
sort of fit together, and then be thoughtful about what's happening in the space. So I've been in crypto for a while, but for me, it was um, like like crypto forces you to rethink industries and disciplines that you would have never thought of, but you think about them from first principles,
Mm-hmm.
knowing a bit about crypto. And so yeah, I think from there we've I've been thoughtful about crypto art, and been able to connect with the community, and it's been great. And then from there also, I started collecting some other NFTs and stuff, but for me it's still largely been just crypto art.
Mhm. Now, so I want to just thank Bodwin. Bodwin actually posted in the chat the Twitter link to that exact post, and I pulled it up while you were talking about it, so that ended up being perfect. So thank you, Bodwin. It's hard to in the middle of the conversation to Google something, but
Awesome.
so I got to pull up the
Yeah.
actual image of it.
Yeah.
Sorry, you had cut out for a second.
Yeah. Awesome. Bodwin's. Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. No. I said awesome. Bodwin's like the Jamie of this podcast. Jamie, pull it
Yeah,
up.
pull that shit up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
so I had,
When you're 1,000 pods in, Savage Talks will have some Jamies. Its own Jamie. Yeah.
I mean, that'll be like the decentralization of Jamie, right? Like
Yeah.
you just have the Twitch TV talk of
Yeah. Yeah.
being able to post something for you. So
Yeah. It's Jamie Dow, right? It's
yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
for you, so I had, like I said, I had watched the podcast with you with Parrot, and so you were talking about how you like to get a lot of pieces that all kind of fit together. And while I think that that's great, you know, like if you only collect blue pieces, you're gonna miss out on the orange ones, right? And so in terms of that take, right, like do you have, and I guess maybe you don't want to admit it, but do you have other accounts where you collect pieces that might not, you know, necessarily mesh, but you want to have regardless?
Uh, I want to make one of those. I
Mhm,
haven't made that yet, but
mhm,
I'm not opposed to making one of those. Like I would
mhm,
create a second persona
mhm,
in order to do something like that. So what I would say though is like, first of all, it's not that I'm only collecting like bald human pieces, right?
mhm.
Though I have collected a lot. Um, uh, what I would say is I'm totally fine evolving the style of my collection.
Mhm,
I just want to do so. I want to evolve it deliberately and in a way that's consistent,
mhm,
right? Like, I, no one expects you to not grow.
mhm,
There just needs to be like a measure to it, and it needs to, I don't know. Collecting is its own kind of uh, its own craft or something. And so, if you just don't care about what you I mean, sorry, like if what you collect is not there's nothing thematic about it, or there's no rhyme or reason,
mhm,
right? It's just hype driven, or it's just a bunch of stuff you like, but
mhm.
there's no consistency to what you like.
Yeah.
That it doesn't become memorable in the same way. So I'm okay collecting blue and green and purple,
Mhm,
and not collecting orange for a long time.
mhm,
Figuratively speaking, right? Like, I'm okay with that actually. Like,
mhm,
yeah, maybe I'll create a second account. I legitimately haven't done the second account thing, but
mhm,
uh, yeah, I'm okay with being, just I'm okay with drawing a line somewhere.
mhm. Gotcha. Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of your collection, do you think that you're going to kind of take it through, you know, phases like a lot of artists go through? Is that kind of, you know, just going to naturally happen, or is it just going to be based on your own interest, or you're just kind of letting it free flow?
Um, a mix of all of those. Like, I definitely don't want to be like, I don't want to be so self-important as a collector that I'm like, I'm not an artist, right? Like,
Mhm,
and so I want to draw the line in the sand so that like I know that difference, right?
mhm,
But I do think about it with some sense of craftsmanship,
mhm.
though I am not, it's more art than science, but it's not like that.
Mhm,
But yeah, I mean, I think my style has evolved over time. Like, I hope uh, I'm okay evolving artistic styles that I collect,
mhm,
but I want there to be something kind of thematically similar about all of them, right? Like,
mhm,
I'm trying to, I am trying to express a worldview
mhm,
where, like it has like something to do with transcendence and momentum, and
mhm,
like for some reason I have multiple pieces called like Fallen Angel,
mhm,
and I have a piece called Forever Falling. I have a piece called Crystal Momentum. I have a piece called like I have a lot of people falling from grace and like elevating and transcending. Like,
mhm,
there's something kinetic about it, I think.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's uh, I don't know. I want there to be some sense that, oh yeah, Goltra probably collected this,
mhm,
and I do think that that's what I've gotten right. And so
mhm.
if I'm doing something totally arbitrary, something that's just outside the bounds of that, then to some extent, like I'm not showing identity the way I'd probably like to.
Mhm. So it sounds like you kind of want the pieces to kind of flow and kind of have that mesh.
Yeah. It's hard to explain, but you know it when you see it. Yeah.
Mhm. So do you have artists that are at this point sitting there trying to be like, okay, I want my piece to get collected by Goltra, so therefore I will make XYZ, or is that not being metagamed yet?
Uh, I don't think. I think that there are people who naturally have styles that I enjoy,
Mhm,
and they create pieces knowing that I'll probably enjoy it.
mhm.
But like, I'll call them out a little bit. But yeah, Glass Crane and Lane. Lane
Mhm,
talked about it on your podcast. Like,
mhm,
I think they had some sense that I was going to really just fall in love with that piece.
mhm,
Uh, I don't think they, but yeah, I don't think people are actively gaming it. But
mhm,
but I am present in the market, and to some extent, they are trying to market the art. So
mhm.
yeah, I mean, no one has made like a golden tree with you know exalted human and like a great forest spirit or something
Mhm.
like if they wanted to really game it or something, I think it'd be a little too much and I would see through it. But like, yeah, it's like part of it is something I've done a lot is like I call out like commissions, and I
Mhm.
mostly just kind of like shit posting or fucking around on Twitter.
Mhm.
um but like I had something which was like, you can tell that a crypto artist is new to the space. And I was trying to be provocative a little bit, but like, you can tell a crypto artist is new to the space when in their bio still says like open to commissions or taking commissions, right?
Yeah.
Um, I I don't want work that is that isn't what they wanted to make or something. Like
Mhm.
if they're uh, there's almost like there's this spectrum of like art and like commissions or like art and design,
Mhm.
right? And it's like if there's like an intention behind it, if there's like intention behind it, it becomes more commissiony or designy.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to collect art or something, right? And so if,
Mhm.
if they're solving for a market function, like if they're just really excessively trying to solve for like some piece of the market side, then
Mhm.
I'd like to think I can see through that, or if I can't, then they've done a very good job concealing, their intentions.
Mhm.
But yeah, hard to say.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That if it is a commission, that it almost like taints the artwork kind of thing, where like it's not coming from that pure side of things, where it's just inspiration or something that they really want to make.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, when I think of like getting someone's art, um, there's a bond in it, right? It's like they saw something, and I think I see it too, right?
Mhm.
Like there's bonding about that. But if they didn't actually see it,
Mhm.
if that's not actually their vision, they think it's someone else's vision. The bond isn't real or something, right? It's artificial, and so um, yeah, it's hard to say.
So you kind of touch on this, but
Or maybe I'm just a huge sucker that's been duped for like 84 pieces, right? So I don't know. I don't know, right? It's hard to
no,
say.
I mean,
Yeah.
well, I guess in terms of that regard, right? Like, I don't think that you would quite have the respect that you had if you were collecting shitty pieces. You know what I mean? Like, eh, if other
Yeah,
people,
hopefully, yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you can't touch on it and other people can't touch on it, then it's probably real, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That'd be the hope.
But yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hopefully that's true.
So you kind of touched on it. Do you think that you're going to try and make pieces in like the future? Do you have any interest in art on your own, or you're just clearly like hands off?
Okay, so uh, uh, I think I would be open to collabs, and I've
Mm,
talked to some people on that. Like I don't like there's not really a point in which I would actively try to learn the craft of like
mm,
I take that seriously, right? Like I have other like I have a job that like would not allow me to properly invest that kind of time for it.
mm,
Um, but like I would bounce ideas off of an artist that I
mm,
really liked, or these sorts of things. Like I made a comment about like where it goes next, and,
mm,
and kind of like the concept of like crypto native art,
mm,
right? So like I don't know that I would have a lot to add on like an audio visual uh you know on the audio visual side, other than just we both just kind of have a crazy vision or something.
Mhm.
I don't know that would be super helpful to an artist. But like, I'm interested in people that using an NFT or a token as its own. The token is the new canvas is a thing that I sort of said. Like, I'd be keen to chat with people that are interested in creating something that's more than just an audiovisual piece of art, right? Like someone that wants to be performative around a drop or an experience with the token, like those sorts of things. Like, so I don't think I'd make art in the sense of like I would learn, I don't think I'd learn one of the like 3D rendering things at all, but I would collaborate on ideas that would be kind of performative about how you could interact with the blockchain and those sorts of things. And so, I've actually been in touch with some people already on the nature of creation or the creative process, right? But yeah, I'm not actively. It would be a little extreme to go into the art part itself.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. From the hours that I've seen from like Lane and stuff to that extent, like it definitely seems crazy. Bodwin asked a question that I think is definitely relevant given the hype behind Pack. But what do you think the creation drop mechanic is going to be?
I can't say. I should not say, actually. It's going to be good. It's going to be really good. Who's Bodwin, man? Who's asking that question, man? Why is he asking me that question? Why are you asking me that question? I think it's going to be a good one. I won't say more than that, but Pack is a brilliant thing. Whatever Pack is, Pack's a brilliant entity. And so, yeah, when I talk a lot about the concept of, I call it kind of crypto native art, or like people kind of using the token as a medium. Like to some extent, I came to these conclusions about things, about like thinking about crypto art that way, just through inspiration from Pack, right? So Pack is very attuned to the way art is evolving, to the nature of value, these sorts of things. And so Pack's brilliant. Yes. I don't think I could help Pack that much. I think that guy understands it in a way that he probably can't explain himself. That he's a true artist. Like he intuits it in a way that's, I think, very brilliant.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like the provocation that he puts out on Twitter is it stimulates the chat, right? Like when he posts, it's the most interaction that I see outside of like the realm that he inhabits, right? Like he's obviously not having the same scope as say Elon, but within the digital space, he is the probably generating the most replies, and it's very interesting.
Totally. Well,
you go.
Well, an interesting piece that, right, is like, so Pack is a pseudonym. Pack exists as a digital identity. Pack owns Arcolect, and so it's like Arcolect's a bot, but Arcolect is part of Pack. So in many ways, like there's Pack, there's Arcolect, there's all of Pack's public wallets from which art is created. It is this. I almost feel weird sometimes referring, like, I almost feel weird referring to him as like a he or a she. I think it's a he, but I don't know. Like it's but like it's kind of this. Yeah, Pack is kind of this amorphous digital identity, right? Even just how Pack constructs himself, creates himself, is itself kind of this interesting performative piece of art, right? Where it's like the Pack identity, the Pack mask is some statement on the nature of how identity is evolving. And like, I don't care that I actually don't ever want to know who Pack is, because that would destroy the illusion of this entity exists and doesn't have doesn't have the flaws that make it human sometimes, right? Like certainly it makes it can make mistakes, there's criticisms of it, these sorts of things, but like in the same way, I never want to know who Satoshi is. I never want to know who Banksy is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's something artful about existing as an idea more than a human, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think Pac. Like, I still think Pac. Like, I still am imagining. You know, I still think of the like. There's probably a human on the other side of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. You know, I'm not down the rabbit hole of like this is something that lives on the internet and it's you know it's might as well be an AI. Like you know, I make jokes about it, but I think it's a person on the other side. But like the mystique is that you will never know, and I'm okay with never knowing, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think I mean so
Yeah.
when you're saying that the biggest correlate or similar thing that I've heard about that is like people had the same take about like the mysticism behind like Han Solo, right? Like the movie Solo was like, why do we have to have this in-depth take on him? And you know, he's the guy who you know shoots first, asks questions later. We don't need the backstory. Like he's just you know the space cowboy. And so Pac, I mean Lane,
Totally. Yeah.
Lane describes him as like the Riddler, and like I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's very accurate. Like he's very he's a provocateur. He you know asks a lot of great questions.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like he's incredible.
Yeah. The things that inspire you are supposed to have an air of mystique, right? When you look closely, right, like you know, like things that are grand and like grand and grandiose, like it's because you don't see the cracks in the foundation and like the stuff it exists greater in your mind in some way. And so yeah, like I don't know, like I don't know what his deal is in real life or what he's like interpersonally or anything like that, but like you know, like the backstory would kind of kill it. The fact that it exists, you know, and same with Satoshi. Satoshi even more so, right? Like Satoshi was all about creating this internet native currency. So he's an internet native character, and you know the fact that your figurehead can be symbolic, but just like but gone, and so you need to figure out consensus without Satoshi present, and so the ideas of these people, like because they haven't revealed themselves, the ideas of these people will always live on stronger than the individuals, right? Like, yeah.
I definitely agree with that. You had mentioned actually first while we're on the topic of Pac, I have a couple of questions given his Twitter post, and I'm curious what your take is. If you had responded, I apologize because then people might have seen it. But
no worries.
Pac had asked a question, and I have two questions that he had asked that I'm really curious your take is. One is what's the difference between a hodler and a flipper?
Yeah. I don't think I did a response to this. I do remember seeing it. He's talking about time preference. He's talking about like he speculated that is it how long you hold it? Is it your intention? These sorts of things. Are you asking for my answer to it, right?
Yes.
Or you're asking for my answer to it, or what did Pac mean by it, right? Yeah, I think intention is a large part of it. I think that yeah, you can be a hodler, right? Like the true hodlers, like the extreme hyper Bitcoinization people. The meme is that so there's this ancient Bitcoin meme, right? It's Neo and Morpheus. It's like it's something where it was like, you know, Neo is like, so you're telling me that someday I'm going to be able to sell my Bitcoin for millions of dollars, right? This was like I saw this back in like 2013, right? And it was Neo saying, you're saying someday I'm going to be able to sell my Bitcoins for millions of dollars. And then it's the Morpheus page, and he says, no, Neo, I'm telling you that when we're done, you won't have to, right? And so like there's the hodler is not just like, hodler is a different word than holder, right? Hodler implies that you are part of a cultural movement, right? And that the most intense hodlers are never going to sell, right? Like there's an idea that I think the true hodlers literally will never sell, like, and their hope is to die and pass on their Bitcoins or their Ethereum. It's more, think hodling is more as a Bitcoin thing, but their goal is to have their children inherit their Bitcoin, like right, like that's the thing, right? It's and maybe we can relate it to GameStop and people like, they're holding on to GameStop even if there's going to be a pullback or something like. Hodling is like is a belief system. It's not holding. It's not it's not like waiting to sell. There's a fanaticism to it, right? And like I think Peter Thiel has a thing about like the great startups being cults, right? But like for movements, right? Revolutions, startups, whatever, right? It seems quaint to compare like a startup to a revolution, right? It's but it's you need fanatics, right? You need people that are like true believers, like they don't necessarily have to be in charge, but like you need them there as your baseline, like as your thing to fall back on. And we've had to fall back on the hodlers many times, right? In 2018, in 2014, and like through the winters, the hodlers are the ones that that keep the space going. When people say that Bitcoin's dead and Ethereum's dead and it'll never scale, it'll never work, it'll never they'll never fix these technical problems. Like the hodlers are the people who almost refuse to listen to reason. And get us through the winter.
Manifest for the greater vision.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. They're hodlers truly never intend to sell. Like holders might sell, in the face of new market information or whatever. But like hodlers are there to die with their Bitcoin, right? Like that's the goal.
And so the second question is more. So he recently had a post, and I'm not going to be able to do it off the top of my head, but it was basically like creators create collectors, and then collectors create more creators. Basically, it was the meaning behind it. And so you had talked about more like crypto native artists, right? And so I liken it. I'm a very large UFC fan. I like MMA a lot. I did Muay Thai a lot through college and stuff, and so you're seeing like an almost like metagame of what's happening inside of UFC right now, where you have guys who are coming up that have seen all the wrestling, all the takedowns, all the all the different ins and outs of UFC, and they're training as like a well-rounded individual. And so they're native to like the UFC space, right? Like when you get a 3-year-old and he's practicing kicks, he's just leaps and bounds from somebody who started at 10, 15, whatever, and is just athletic, right? And so to your point, like the crypto native artists, like do you think that there's going to be like a wave of kids starting now that are training digitally?
Yeah, totally. I yes, very much so. I think so. When you're talking about MMA, like something that I'm reminded of is there's if you know about Lex Friedman, he's another sort of podcaster, also does Muay Thai or kickboxing. He does something, and like brilliant AI scientist, gets really great guests. He had on Gary Kasparov. And Kasparov is like was in the I think 70s, 80s, and 90s just the reigning world chess champion. He's the one who played Deep Blue, and like it's funny because he has like this Michael Jordan energy of just like he's still trying to say he's the best, and like like what I think Jordan is the best, but like but he talks about like the way you score chess the way you score chess is Elo rating, right? So basically, the way you study chess is you study all the prior games, and so you actually can't really compare across generations because Magnus Carlsen, who's the current champion, or maybe it's Wesley So or one of these guys, like Magnus Carlsen has the highest Elo rating of all time, but it's like. And to some extent, there's like the Elo ranking is actually objective because he could probably kick the ass of all the prior world champions. But it's because he plays in the 2010s and 2020s, and chess is a cumulative sport. Right. You study the games of the prior grandmasters and figure out why they did it, and you internalize it. And like at the highest levels, chess is very emotional, and so Kasparov is trying to say, well, no, you have to compare it to who I was playing. I had the longevity, like I was world champion for the longest time. So like he's kind of saying like, in his heart of hearts, I think he's like probably upset, that he, there's someone now better than him. But he's trying to say like, well, he's only better than me because he's got the advantage of he's got the cumulative years of he has all of my games to study.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like a cumulative thing. And so, yeah, I think art itself is an evolutionary process. And so Yeah, I mean, we have like the only way we have crypto artists, not crypto native artists,
Mhm.
but the only way we have crypto artists is that we have prior generations of digital artists.
Mhm.
And the only reason we have digital artists is because we have prior generations of print artists. And like you can never separate it, you know?
Yeah.
Like crypto native artists is an interesting tag. I think we're generally referring to it as, you know, I think we're using it to reference something specific, which is we're excited for people that will start to test the boundaries of the crypto and blockchain platform or
Mhm.
medium, right? But it's not like I don't know. There's like Nietzsche, and Nietzsche says like man is both a downgoing and an overgoing or something. Like you're never man. You're always in the process of becoming man
Mhm.
or something, right? It's like it's an evolutionary process, right? You're a bridge. You're never at the destination, right? As
Yeah.
a species, right? Or as an artist or as a whatever, right? And like you're only ever becoming something.
Mhm.
You're never something.
So Bodwin is probably, I don't know. I guess he should be sitting here at this point. So his
Yeah,
response is,
just call him up. Yeah,
well, I'm saying instead of me, not instead of you. But so he said, if I have
yeah.
seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants, which is a very apt
Yeah,
response. And
yeah,
then
yeah,
he also
yeah.
said that he trains with Google DeepMind chess engine, which Cat didn't have. So there's definitely that aspect.
Exactly. Yeah,
And
yeah. Shout out to Bodwin, man. He's really adding. He's adding a lot to this program, so that's great. Uh, but yeah, right. It's like you never. We couldn't make, you know, like we had the benefit of living in cities
mhm,
that other people made and stuff, right? And so
yeah,
like to some extent, like uh yeah, it's like the human experience is very cumulative. And so yeah, I think there's going to be people that are understand the crypto art thing much better, right?
mhm,
And by the way, the other thing that I was thinking of as you were telling the MMA allegory is people talk about Steph Curry changing the game,
mhm,
and it's because it's literally like modern AAU basketball is like a bunch of little kids like shooting threes, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's like, you know, it used to just be the like, you know, it used to be the 12-year-old who hits 6'4",
mhm.
you know, gets the early puberty and like knows how to dunk when they're 12.
Yeah.
And now it's like, you know, it's a 4 foot tall, like 4 foot tall 4 foot tall kid trying to shoot like 50 footers, right? Like,
Yes. Yes.
and so like, yeah, like the game always changes based on the greats of that era, right? And so,
Mhm,
yeah, people will probably like, you know, look at what Pac's doing right now, or, you know, other people in the space, like, and you know, they'll reinvent collectibles and like hash masks and all this stuff. Like, it's everything is a cumulative process, right?
mhm. Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. To the Steph Curry point, I think 864. I forget. Not 864. That's a person. There's a statistics page, and they had broken down like why Steph Curry is so successful.
Mm-mm.
And if you have a good shooter,
Yeah,
the relative basis of shooting inside the 3 point line or outside the 3 point line, that one extra point compounded. So long as you can shoot at like a 30%, you know, something like that, like a very low percentage of accuracy, it still compounds so much
yeah,
higher that your relative scoring is
yeah,
just that much better.
yeah, totally. Oh, what's the blog? Yeah, 538 or something like
Yes,
that, right?
yes, yes. Yeah,
And
that's what it is.
that's Maury ball. So Maury is the one that really Daryl Morey. He was previously, he's now the Sixers GM or
Uh,
Sixers president of basketball. But prior to that, he was the GM of the Rockets
mm,
and Harden and stuff. And yeah, basically like think of all the shots you could take, right? So even
mm,
if you're a 50% shooter of 2 pointers,
mm,
right? The expected value of a 50% 2 point shot is 1 point.
mm,
And the expected value, if you're a 40% 3 point shooter, the expected value is 1.2
mm.
points, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, incrementally that 0.2 difference over, you know, if you're someone that's taking 20 shots a game,
Yeah.
right, then that means that's the difference between 20 points and 24 points, right?
Mm,
And that's a pretty meaningful thing as a player, right? And
yeah.
then if you're shooting 45 points, that gets you at, you know, like it starts to add up, right? And
Mm,
that's why like the modern NBA game, like actually the best modern NBA player is James Harden. Well,
mm.
first of all, I'm a Warriors fan. Like Curry is my I'm a Curry guy, but the
Mhm.
reason James Harden is such a good player is because all he does is threes,
Yes.
and then he draws free throws,
Mhm.
right? So if you're getting 2 free throws and you're shooting, 90% from free throw, every 90% from the free throw line, every time you draw a foul, it's expected, your expected value is like 1.8.
Yeah.
Every time you take a three, if you're a 45% 3-point shooter,
Mhm.
your expected value is like 45%. 45 times three is 115, something. I don't know. Sorry, 135,
Yeah.
1.35, something like that, right? Yeah, it's like it becomes this like incremental game, and to some extent,
Mhm.
like there's other parts to it, right? There's like so pure stats is never the answer, right? It's
So I definitely agree that there's more than just like stat lines, right? Obviously, like there's going to be impact, there's going to be morale, right? Like there's just going to be that like clutch percentage, which I mean, baseball has started trying to do that. I mean, that's like the basis of I'm blanking, but there's like the whole movie of basically just like the statistics of baseball, which has like an actual name and like a study basis. And that like
Moneyball.
Moneyball. Yes, yes, yes. I
Yeah,
forget
yeah.
what the statistics is like. Actually, I had tried to study it and it was out of my depth a little bit, but they basically have like an entire statistics
Yeah,
program that is like geared towards up and comers like AAA, AA, whatever, and then kind of like based on those stats outlining like how good they're going to be in like the majors, and then Moneyball is the
yeah,
cheapest best team possible, right?
yeah. While we're talking about baseball stats, I have a great phrase for you,
Hmm.
um, and it's a phrase that venture capitalists use,
Hmm.
and it's related to. I mean, it's taken from baseball,
Hmm.
and it's um, like I think the common business buzzwords or whatever you'd say, like or jargon, or I guess is like you want to hit a home run, right, or
Hmm.
something, right? It's like you want to do that, but right, and so people generally think about like hitting percentage,
Hmm.
but actually like business or life, it's not hitting percentage. You don't care about hitting percentage.
Hmm.
You care about slug percentage,
Hmm.
right? And so slug percentage is like, it's not just your hitting percentage. It's like your expected value of a hit is how many runs batted in or something,
Hmm.
right? And so like it's not just consistency, it's the magnitude, right? And so
Hmm.
it's like if you hit one great trade or one great investment,
Hmm.
that could make up the returns of the entire rest of your career, right? it's
Yep.
it's some understanding of power laws and yeah, those kinds of, yeah, just kind of power law dynamics, right? It's like
Hmm.
you actually don't care that much about consistency. It's like if you hit the one right trade in your life,
Hmm.
or you know the uh if you're making one incredible decision a year,
Hmm.
that makes up for a bunch of bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
So magnitude is really important, and
Hmm.
and so um, that's the thing I always think of when I think of baseball stats is slug percentage, right? Because that's more important really than anything else.
Yeah, I think this was like towards the tail end. For some reason, that jogged a memory, but I think towards the tail end of A Rod's career, there was this thing about clutch percentage, and like clutch percentage was like with runners in scoring position, how good were you at like
Yeah,
actually
probably.
hitting? And so A Rod just had an absolutely
Yeah,
terrible clutch percentage, and so at the time, like now I kind of like him again, even whatever is going on. But like at the time, like
yeah,
when he came on to like the Yankees, I was just like, dude, the guy did steroids. Like, why are we taking? Like I just had like a bad taste in my mouth, and then like
yeah,
the
yeah,
cost
yeah,
behind him and everything. I'm not like a huge baseball fan, but like it was just as like a Yankees fan, I'm like, why are we picking up like a cheater? Like, and then his clutch percentage
yeah,
was
yeah,
terrible. And again,
yeah,
to your take with like the slugging percentage, I just thought, yeah. Um, I guess so.
yeah, yeah.
I don't want to bore you because I remember you talking about crypto. Do you want to talk about where you think crypto is going to go? I know that you're basically a crypto native or originator, being in it from like 2013. So I don't want to. If you're
Yeah.
not super interested in the topic,
No,
I could do others.
I'm happy. I'm happy to chat. Happy to chat the future of crypto. It's something I spend a lot of time in. So
Mhm.
probably I have some perspective on it for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess the future of crypto, and I had read a lot, but I guess your feet on the ground. How impactful has crypto been in the Philippines?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, so something I encounter a lot is like Filipinos don't realize. I think Filipinos underestimate the impact, like how pervasive crypto has. Like, okay, maybe I think Filipinos overestimate how, like, the crypto ecosystems of other countries.
Mhm.
So like I think there's a lot of people who don't realize that the Philippines has done some pretty interesting stuff,
Mhm.
right? Like, sure, not everyone's using it. Like, people aren't. The stereotype in the crypto ecosystem is like, yeah, but when are you going to be able to pay for coffee with Bitcoin, right? That was kind of like a meme for a while, because it was like, oh yeah, you're supposed to make payments with it and stuff, right? But like, I mean, we've had some interesting homegrown companies in the Philippines. Like, I was at one of them, which is called Coins PH, but we had a bunch of early, like, exchanges, remittance companies, these sorts of things. And I think that's been like an important narrative, and it's still being played out. Like, I don't think it's not like everything. It's not like all remittances are on the blockchain all of a sudden, but it's still being built out, which is interesting. I mean, that energy is still happening. And then I think the really interesting part of crypto in the Philippines right now is, like, we're talking NFTs and stuff. Crypto gaming is a wild space in the Philippines. So basically, there's these new class of games that have native tokens, and the items you win in game, right? Like, you're able to kind of, you're able to get tokens that are liquidly tradable, right? And so there's one really popular game here in the Philippines called Axie Infinity, and if you play Axie Infinity consistently, once you've set up a team and stuff, it ends up averaging to like $2 or $3. That depends on the price of. You win this token called SLP, which helps you breed your Axies and stuff. And there's a market for it. There's a market that it trades against ETH. You can trade it on Binance. You can trade it on, like, right? Like, there's real liquid markets for this thing. And this token, like, on average, like, if you're playing, your minimum wage ends up being like $2 an hour, $2 or $3 an hour. I mean, that's kind of like, oh, hey, at least I'm earning something. Like, if you're in the US, right, it's like, hey, at least I'm earning something. Like, you're probably thinking of game mechanics and stuff, but like, in the Philippines, $2 an hour is a lot of money. For you're not rich, but like, you can end up playing video games for 12 hours a day, and make significantly more than minimum wage. Right? Like, seriously, like, and so there's this interesting thing happening in the Philippines where, like, prior generations of tech people in the Philippines, they wanted to say, like, how are we going to make Silicon Valley in the Philippines? And I think that was always a fallacy, because it's just like, we don't have the developer culture. We don't have, like, that's not the strong suit at the moment of the Philippines. And so what's interesting is, in the crypto ecosystem, right, we're not like, there's DeFi projects built in other things, but like, actually, where the Philippines is adding a lot of value is like English speaking labor, right? Like people that can kind of farm, people that can really grind in these games, and surface new items and tokens and these sorts of things, and then kind of sell them back into the community so that there's liquidity in the community and these sorts of things. So like, crypto gaming is creating these opportunities in the Philippines where it's just like, there's a bunch of people who just lost their, like, day laborer jobs and stuff in the Philippines. And so, like, there are entire villages in, like, not in the city, but like in obscure provinces, where it's just like a room of people connected to Wi-Fi playing Axie Infinity. And then they take it and they send the money to Binance, or they send it to Uniswap, trade out into ETH or into a stable coin or something. And then they use Coins PH to get to cash. And there's a cash out point in their village. And like, they play video games for a living, which is crazy. And so, there's a lot of weird stuff happening. But like, there's a lot of very interesting edge case stuff happening in the Philippines that I think is not yet widely understood. Like, I don't think people internationally. Oh,
you're good. I caught up to you.
Am I good?
Up to you. Yep.
Can you
caught up to you? Yep.
See me here? Let me try.
Okay.
There we go. I reconnected to the first network. There's a lot of just weird kind of edge case stuff happening in the Philippines, because we have enough like crypto knowledge and stuff, but then it's like we're taking advantage of our natural resources, which is like, I think affordable labor that looks for economic activity or economic opportunity.
Hmm.
And then the interesting thing is in the Philippines, um, it's very common for Filipinos to go abroad.
Hmm.
There's this thing called an OFW, which is an overseas Filipino worker,
Hmm.
and they basically go from a village or from not very favorable economic conditions to
Hmm.
go work in international markets as construction worker or
Hmm.
a domestic helper or a nurse or like a bunch of different jobs, and then they get money in a higher wage market, and then they're remitting the money home. They're sending money back to the Philippines, and that's why the Philippines is such a large remittance market, right? It's because there's so many Filipinos living outside of the Philippines sending money back.
Yeah.
But then what's interesting, right, is if you're playing a blockchain-based video game, um, in many ways you're still working in a foreign in an external economy, right?
Hmm.
But then it's different because instead of having to go to Dubai and be a laborer there,
Hmm.
you can go to Lunasia, which is like the nation in the continent in Axie Infinity, or one of these other games, the Sandbox, these sorts of things.
Hmm.
Farm items, farm tokens, and you're kind of grinding in that game instead of grinding in a foreign country.
Hmm.
And then a lot of the times the sources that the crypto outlets you would use to send the money to,
Hmm.
they're also remittance services, right? So it's like you're even using the same services to bring it back to the Philippines,
Hmm.
and they're helping you come to cash and stuff. And so in many ways, like instead of having actual like laborers that travel internationally or across the globe, we actually have laborers that are traveling digitally
Hmm.
using cryptocurrency and then sending the money back. And so yeah, there's like the Philippines is like a really interesting, I think, crypto market because it's just got such an interesting affinity to remittances and like finance, and these are historically like very gate kept
Hmm.
financial financial products, and so those are the things that I think are naturally uh, very probably vulnerable to some of the disruptive effects of cryptocurrency.
So with them being able to make more money versus minimum wage on the game, would you say that it's going to eventually, or is it beginning to actually impact the minimum wage aspect?
No, look, it's not mass. I mean, there's thousands of people doing this, but the
Mm-hmm.
Philippines is a big country, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it hasn't moved the market in that sense, but like by the standards of crypto, there's really a lot of people doing it here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's not. There's like 110 million people in the Philippines, and so it hasn't dramatically shifted labor yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only the first couple games doing this. You can imagine in 10 years
Yeah.
when there's more people living, spending, larger parts of right. A lot of time right now, a lot of people spend their digital life, social life on the internet,
Mm-hmm.
but not a lot of people spend their economic life on the internet in the same
Yeah.
way, right? And if you're in crypto art, that's totally different for you, or like, there's definitely a lot of people making an income on the internet, but like,
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of people are like uh, participating in the internet economy in the same way.
Yeah.
But in 10 years, like you can imagine that being very different, right? In 10 years, you can imagine that having dramatic effects on the labor force, right?
Mm-hmm.
That could be the kind of thing where, uh, there's going to be entire countries whose like labor force is just grinding on the internet, right? Like just like there's ways to farm value on the internet, and so there's going to be people that are like large swaths of populations in emerging markets that are just farming uh, not just video game items, but like just uh, adding production to the internet and being compensated in crypto for that.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think so? Like you were saying, right? Like they're essentially going to work in a crypto universe, right? Do you think that that in a massive sense, right? Like as it continues to grow and as like the scale actually starts to increase, do you think that there's going to be pushback from like federal levels and countries like country side levels? Because like that's kind of my take as far as like the U.S. because obviously we basically printed our way out of the economic crisis that was coronavirus, right? But if you're doing it with Bitcoin, like how do you solve that problem with Bitcoin? And so as people start to adopt it
So
more,
yeah, no, sorry, I totally interrupted you.
no,
Yeah,
you get where I'm going. That's perfect.
yeah. Um, I think the U.S. and China are their own spheres,
Mhm.
right? So they're their own spheres of influence, and you can imagine why both of them, for very different reasons, are opposed to it.
Mhm.
But if you're the Philippines, these are new job opportunities
Mhm.
abroad with your citizens. Like, you're kind of you're under the economic force of other superpowers anyway,
Mhm.
right? So it's like, if you're, and so the Philippines has been very receptive to actual crypto innovation, right?
Mhm.
Uh, obviously they want to prevent fraud, they want to prevent anti-money laundering, like,
Mhm.
but actually generally they've been very progressive about crypto, and allowing
Mhm.
people to participate in crypto ecosystems, which is another reason I think it's a fairly interesting market. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think the U.S. is going to be one sphere. China's going to be another sphere. But
Mhm.
then the rest, it's going to be country by country, right? Like, they'll they might tax a lot of these crypto gains. They might
Yeah.
regulate it and stuff. But like, to some extent, it's still like, people in the Philippines creating new drawing economic resources from outside of the Philippines and sending them into the Philippines, right? Like,
Mhm.
it's clearly a positive economic uh, inflow, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, I'm sure country by country, the state of regulation will be different, and so yeah,
Mhm.
it's hard to speak to that. I think some countries will be very restrictive,
Mhm.
some will be very open, some will be very hands off.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's hard to say, but the world's a big place. Is
Yeah.
all I have to say. Yeah.
So I had read through like a bunch of your posts, and so I had some I guess questions from some of the takes that you had on a couple of the posts. Uh, you're now a Filipino citizen, so congrats on that. But what's your take
Oh,
as
thanks.
far as the expat life? Like, are you still kind of like seen as an outsider, or do you think that you're very ingrained? Like, how is yeah.
Um, yeah, I am transitioning into something in the middle.
Mhm.
When I first got to the Philippines, I was very much an expat. Like, I
Mhm.
was very, but yeah, you know what? I think one of the reasons that's so attractive to me, the Philippines is so attractive to me, is I benefit from, like, what Teal would call an insider outsider effect,
Mhm.
right? So like, there's, um, like, you're the very interesting opportunities are ones in which you kind of exist in this duality where, you are an insider in some way. So I
Mhm.
am Filipino. Like,
Mhm.
my mother's Filipino, so I have family here in Metro Manila.
Nice.
Um, I have some Filipino origin and that sort of thing. So like, I'm still someone that kind of a returned son of the Philippines,
Mhm.
and yet I'm also foreign. I'm also from California.
Mhm.
Um, and so I get to simultaneously exist as a Filipino in certain cases, and as an expat in certain cases. And so
Mhm.
the fact that I kind of get to straddle both worlds is I think is a thing of value, because it's like you get to see a scenario from multiple angles, right? That whereas normally you'd kind of see it in a single dimension.
Mhm.
And so, um, yeah, so I still have big groups of expat friends,
Mhm.
and talk about like Valley style startup stuff,
Mhm.
or international content and that sort of thing. But then also, like, I have groups of friends that are very Filipino, and I have family members here, and like,
Mhm.
it's I get to be a little bit of both, and I think being both gives me optionality, or gives me a chance to straddle the worlds, which I think has been interesting for me, for sure.
Mhm. Nice. Yeah. Do you? So I admittedly had to Google this to double check, but we had bumped into Filipinos in San Francisco one time. My friend is Filipino. She's like, "Oh, they're speaking
Nice.
Tagalog." I think if I'm
Yeah.
pronouncing that.
Yeah.
Do you speak
Yeah.
that
It's
language as well?
Tagalog. I don't. No.
No.
Yeah. Not at all. Or not really.
Mhm.
I can. add enough little phrases to be humorous and stuff, but
Mm.
I need to. I'm actively. Probably I'm gonna take lessons.
Nice, nice.
I'm like 5 years in, and I'm always about to take lessons, but
Mm.
I'm about to take lessons.
It's all right.
Yeah,
I definitely understand where that's coming
yeah,
from. I don't think I have the
yeah,
brain
yeah,
for languages. Um, it's been a struggle. I think I took 11 years of Spanish throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, college, and I have some
yeah,
present tense, and most of it's gone. But I don't know. Yeah, I
yeah,
think
yeah,
I think you got to be geared towards it. Um, what
yeah.
what's the and I guess are you involved with what's the take of VC funding and startups in like the Philippines, and have you gotten involved with any of that?
Um, yeah, like I definitely, I was in a Philippine startup. I don't consider what I'm at right now like at least a local startup, right?
Mm,
Certainly we're, a fast growing tech company and stuff, but
yeah.
um, it's not like a locally funded VC thing. So I follow the local VC ecosystem for sure.
Mm,
Sorry, startup ecosystem for sure. Um, it's interesting. So I think I referenced the thing earlier, like I think, in my opinion, the fallacy of prior generations is every generation of Philippine tech people have said, like, how are we going to make Silicon Valley in the Philippines?
mm,
And it's not like, New York isn't successful because they're like the East Coast Silicon Valley,
mm,
or right, or London is not the, like every market needs to have its own strengths and weaknesses, and play by that, right? And so
mm,
you need to figure out how tech enables that. Yeah, so the Philippines has a lot of fintech because
mm,
there's just a lot of, like, generally they're progressive on regulation for fintech.
mm,
There's a lot of remittances. There's a lot of, like, a lot of just things broken.
mm,
Um, so yeah, there's been, there's definitely some notable startups that are up and comers here.
mm,
Um, and then yeah, like there's a social media platform. There's a lot of it's very there are a handful of very good, impressive, like, local, not just Philippine but Southeast Asian companies
mm,
that are like they understand Southeast Asia in like a native way. But
mm,
what I do encounter a lot in Southeast Asia is, I call it like the playing basketball from books fallacy,
mm,
where it's like you've read Zero to One, you've read The Hard Thing About Hard Things, and you've read Lean Startup, and like there's a startup canon kind of that you're supposed to read
mm,
to be a startup person,
mm,
but like you read all that and then you just start a startup. It's not like they worked at startups already or know other founders, and like it takes a long time for, like, right, like the reason Silicon Valley is so successful is it's fertile with just filled with the lessons of dead startups,
mm,
right? Like Silicon Valley is this ecosystem where things grow and die, but the death of the company comes with a bunch of people who learned lessons
yeah.
and then they reapply them to build again, right? So
Mm,
like Silicon Valley is like, when was the so in the like 1960s, I think, was when Fairchild happened.
mm,
So Silicon Valley is like 60 years old,
mm,
and so it's like 6 decades of just this like tilling that happens of like
yeah.
of of, of, of venture funding and startups, you know, raising a little bit and dying
Mm,
and succeeding, and like it's just 6 decades uh of like pretty gigantic learning, and you can try to learn it through books, but like you can't play basketball from reading books,
yeah.
right? And so yeah, so there's a lot of, like, we're still in that phase where it's just like you kind of know what you're supposed to do because you've read interesting books and stuff, but like there's not a lot of people who worked in tech internationally or
Mm,
like great product organizations and stuff, and so we're still very young here. I think there's still a hope that we, you know, I'm certainly hopeful and actively trying to help build it and stuff. But like,
mm,
we're still building the tech ecosystem here. We've had a couple, we've had a few good runs and stuff, but like,
mm.
we just don't have the iterative cycle yet to have produced something majestic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, regardless of tech and everything like that, I think that, Southeast Asia is going to be a monster grower for like the next decade. I think that
Totally.
Africa is going to also have, some monster moves. I mean, you already see it with like Nigeria and stuff to that extent. So, I would definitely expect more people to like migrate into the system as capital becomes, I mean, it's really like a capital issue, right? If they were able to pay more money, you could bring in more people from, from Silicon Valley, possibly. Maybe that would help the situation, do you think, or no?
Um, maybe I know. Like, actually, I think it's a knowledge problem. I think
Oh,
it's a skill problem. Like,
mm,
because yeah, you could bring in people. So yeah, okay, yeah, you could bring in foreign talent and stuff, but
mm,
like, it's not like money is the main thing that drives like a really good engineer,
mm,
right? It's like you need people that to know how to solve challenges in an interesting way.
mm.
Um, you need something that you need like
Fanatics.
founders and stuff that are yeah, you need fanatic, though, truly, like you
Mm,
need um like Singapore is a highly desirable place to live, right?
mm,
Like it's I think there's a lot of founders that would love to move there from the US or Europe and stuff, like
mm,
um so like yeah, like talent comes into the region, and for the amount of startups we have, there's access to capital, certainly,
mm,
but I think the limiting factor is like just inspired founders who kind of know what they're doing, right?
mm,
And that comes at a culture level. That you need the fanatics, as I was saying, right? Like
mm.
in the Philippines, at least, you need a way to change culture. You need like uh, yeah, it needs to be something where it's just like you just need hungry people that like, not literally, we there's a lot of that too, but like uh, you need like people that just like, it's kind of cliche to say in the valley now, but like you need people that want to change the fucking world,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so um it's coming, but it's just like there's people that want to change the world, they just don't know how yet. And so
Mm,
like you need that iterative cycle of like, oh yeah, like wow, there's a company that like was really successful, and then they flamed out, and everyone learned what not to do, right? Like you
mm,
need a lot of just those like gigantic rise and fall stories, and
mm.
then also the giant successes, and like it the ecosystem needs to till a little bit and fertilize, and then over time, that's when the good shit grows.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Bodwin chimed in with talent begets talent, which is definitely, yeah,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
totally. Yeah.
you seem to be a monster basketball fan. I guess definitely interesting in, like, do you just stream it, but also with your collection and stuff to that extent, are you interested in like the NBA Top Shot scene?
Top shots.
Yes.
Uh, uh, okay. I consume basketball in a weird way. So
Mm,
uh, this is going to be one of my more galaxy brain takes in this
mm.
talk. The NBA is not a sport.
Okay.
The NBA is the world's greatest reality TV show. There's something for everyone, right?
Mhm,
And so I do try to watch games when I can, but
mhm,
it's usually inconvenient. It's like during work and that sort of
mhm,
stuff. So it's like I don't actually get to watch that many games, right? So,
mhm,
but I like follow the GM interactions, like
mhm,
potential trades. I listen to some of like the fun podcasts.
mhm.
I track the stats. Like I go on like you know subreddits and that sort of stuff. Like
Yeah,
it's and like it's kind of its own reality TV show,
yeah.
and it's in a weird way. It's like it kind of reminds me of like a crypto. This is a bit of a flimsy connection, but like it's kind of like in the same sense that like in crypto art, you can kind of track all of all the artists and what they're doing, and
Mm,
like the NBA is a lot like that, right? You're just like who the GMs are, when a player is like, when your rookie's like a bust, and
yeah.
like it's a pretty contained ecosystem
Mhm,
that you can kind of track in an interesting way, and you just it's fun to see all the interactions, and to speculate on what people are going to do, and like
mhm,
there's a clear end goal. And so I love watching basketball too. Like I love having like being at a sports bar in the US or something, and just getting drunk with friends and watching basketball. But like
mhm,
you can actually enjoy like the meta game of basketball, where it's like what are the GMs doing in interactions, like how
mhm.
are the players like getting along, like is Kyrie Irving like fucking off and like partying somewhere and getting banned. Like
Mhm,
there's a meta game of like the narrative is this giant sweeping reality TV show,
mhm,
and so that's what I like about basketball. Uh, I did not get any NBA Top Shots.
mhm,
Uh, I I should have. Obviously, we all should have bought a bunch of LeBrons.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like I sometimes I just miss the boat, and like it sucks to miss the boat, but I try not to ape too hard into it after I miss the boat. There's going to be other boats, like
Yeah.
I should have gotten into NBA Top Shots for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've been in a few crypto bubbles already, and so like you can ape pretty hard and then get really crunched. And so
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I'm pretty happy with crypto art. I'm happy with the sort of regular crypto and crypto startups and companies and stuff. And so yeah, I happen to miss the NBA Top Shot boat, but it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch from an arm's length.
Gotcha. This is obviously I'll preface with not financial advice, and I'll just say I'm mildly a moron.
Yeah.
So take it with a grain of salt. But my advice, if you were looking to get involved and you were not looking to get crushed, would be to pick a good player that has a challenge coming out. They do challenges, right? It's NBATopShots.com/challenges, and the challenges that are coming out, they have one for Luka Doncic right now. They have another one from a guy that I'm not as well aware of, and then there's a new one coming out soon. I have to think of the name. I can't think of who it is. It's a bigger player. They just did one with Steph Curry.
Yeah.
I think that the easiest way to get involved and not get crushed, pick a large drop, right? Like LeBron or Steph in terms of a challenge. You have to accumulate 10 pieces, right? Typically it's 10 pieces. Sometimes it's 8. But you have to accumulate the pieces, and then at the end of the countdown, if you have all 10 pieces or whatever it is, you get the piece, right? And the last Steph Curry piece, the lowest ask on it is like $7,000. The total cost to get involved with it was like $2K. If you can catch the challenge early and you buy, say, 3 sets of the pieces, and you sell 2 sets of the pieces, you basically get the first one for free. And I think it's a great way to, if you have the capital, to get started and accumulate like a great piece for basically free.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, that's a little bit of time and effort, but
yeah, interesting. Yeah, I for a long time didn't realize that they were the same blockchain as CryptoKitties. That their setup is pretty interesting. They're like they're an enviable, like they've got a good setup. Like the licensed NFT stuff is a good business to be in, and so I'm sure they're going to do NFL and like Marvel, and I'm sure they're going to try to get a bunch of different licensed content, and that seems like it seems like they're really onto something there. Because one of the things I've been saying is like that's what's going to get people to use crypto, right? That's actually getting people to use the blockchain, right? That's like legit basketball fans are like coming into crypto to use NBA Top Shots, and they don't have any clue what DeFi is or anything else, right? Like right, so that's an interesting on ramp. Like that's people using crypto for real as a use case. Like so yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So I'm out of questions. I like to close with, if you were in my shoes, like what question would you want to be asked?
Ooh, this is good. I like the how the turntables, right? I don't know. You asked some good questions. You know what you're doing. I'm trying to think of like what are other good questions. No, I've liked this a lot. Yeah, I guess I'm short of inspiration here. I would ask you, if you were in my shoes. I'm just kidding. No. We just have this recursive thing where we're no. No, you did a good job. I think I talked about a bunch of topics that have not seen the light of day in a while. So this was fun.
Thank you. I appreciate the time, man. I think it's something that I want to do with people, but maybe in like 6 months or a year, we'll run it back, see where the collection's at, see where Binance is, and Filipino cryptocurrency, and just everything else in between. And hopefully, for your sake, the Warriors win. I'm not too versed in likelihood in terms of betting odds.
Okay, so here's my. I don't think we're gonna win this year.
Okay,
that's okay. What I hope is, So in the Warriors they have James Wiseman, who's like a really promising rookie.
Mhm.
They have a really good pick from Minnesota in like this next draft, which is a really deep draft.
Mhm.
They'll get Klay Thompson back, and so they could have this continuity arc where it's just like they have someone that's pretty good in the prime of his career. They have very promising rookies,
Mhm.
and they have aging stars.
Mhm.
And so I'm hoping that they can build this Spurs like continuity chain.
Yeah.
Where it's just like they have a very good team in place every year, and all it takes is like if they can just consistently have a contender every year for the next decade or something, or if they can have a team that is at least a contender for the next 6 years or something. I don't until Steph Curry is just way too old and stuff. Uh, if there's just like this like clear cycle to it, and maybe this goes back on the like standing on the shoulders of giants conversation we had earlier, right?
Mhm.
If they can just have continuity where every year they're both building and in contention,
Yeah.
and all they need is at that point they're one superstar injury from to the other team or something from making the finals and potentially winning, right?
Mhm.
Like Toronto weirdly did that, right? They weren't like when they beat the Warriors, like you just had to survive,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes to get a NBA championship, you just need to be the last person standing.
Mhm.
You don't need to be the best team in the league the whole year,
Yeah.
right? And so if we can just have a good shot at being the last team standing every year,
Mhm.
eventually, like just statistically, it'll break right for us.
Yeah. I mean, you've
Yeah,
had great success through the last decade, so I mean that's something to be
yeah,
happy from. As a
yeah,
as a semi Knicks fan, it's
yeah,
been depressing forever.
yeah, yeah. The Knicks. I feel for you guys. That's tough. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, I would go to Warriors games as a kid when they were really bad and like
Mhm.
get great seats. Like,
Mhm.
you wouldn't like, it was like you could, you could if middle class people could afford great seats, but
Mhm.
we were so bad and like you never saw them win and these sorts of things. And so, yeah, I guess that's fair too. Actually, if you would ask me, like, would you trade all this badness for 5 years of like one of the greatest teams of all time? I'd be like, yeah, I'll make that trade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah. You do have to be, one has to be grateful for what we did get. So that was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, dude, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. I had a blast.
Yeah,
Bodwin said that he had a blast too. Excellent conversation specifically.
yeah,
So, shout out to
yeah.
Bodwin
Thank you,
for.
Savage, and thanks, Bodwin. Yeah,
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
awesome,
Have a,
Savage. Cheers, man. Thanks for having me.
no problem, man. Thank you so much for the time.
What's going on, guys? Thank you for tuning into the show. Appreciate the time. Appreciate the attention. And as always, let me know what you guys think. Shout out to Bodwin. I missed it in the intro. I'm going to leave it down in the comments. But Bodwin absolutely was an incredible third host to the podcast, chiming in with, just different hot takes, different quotes, different, just different input throughout the entire podcast. So thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you, Bodwin, and hopefully see you in the Twitch live stream again soon. And so check us out on Twitch too. Link down in the comments. It's going to be new moving forward to hopefully have like a live stream because I like that interaction with the community kind of thing for different pieces. So as always, stay safe, peace, stay healthy. Later.